A desperate jazz singer takes a last-minute gig to keep the lights on, but one soulful performance catches the eye of a billionaire haunted by his past. Is it fate or a second chance cloaked in risk? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The ceiling in Brielle Joyner's apartment was leaking again. She placed another pot under the steady drip and sighed as she looked at her phone. The electricity bill was overdue, and her little sister Tamika needed new school shoes. At 24, Brielle felt decades older, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "Brie, I'm hungry," Tamika called from their small living room where she was doing homework. "I know, baby, give me a minute," Brielle replied, checking her nearly empty refrigerator. She'd been stretching their groceries as far as possible, but they couldn't last much longer. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Marcus, the booking agent who helped her find singing gigs around New Orleans. "Emergency job tonight, rich people party at Marlowe Estate, previous singer cancelled, $500 cash. You in?" Brielle's heart jumped. $500 would cover the electricity bill and get Tamika those shoes she needed. She quickly texted back, "I'm in. What time?" 8 p.m. Dress fancy. Jazz standards. Brielle rushed to her closet and pushed aside her everyday clothes. In the back hung a simple black gown she'd found at a thrift store. It wasn't designer, but it looked elegant enough from a distance. She'd worn it for church concerts and the occasional wedding gig. "Tamika, I got a job tonight. Mrs. Wilson next door will watch you," she called out. "Again?" Tamika frowned. "But you promised to help with my science project." Brielle knelt down to her sister's eye level. "I know, and I'm sorry, but this job pays really well, and you know what that means?" "New shoes?" Tamika's eyes lit up. "Exactly." Brielle smiled, though her heart ached. At 12 years old, Tamika deserved so much more than broken promises and hand-me-downs. After a quick dinner of boxed macaroni and cheese, Brielle got ready. She applied her makeup carefully, put on her best pair of earrings, her mother's simple pearl studs, and slipped into the black dress. Looking in the mirror, she tried to see past the exhaustion in her eyes. Tonight, she would pretend to be someone else, someone who belonged among the wealthy and privileged. "You look like a princess," Tamika said from the doorway. Brielle smiled. "I'm just a singer, baby girl, but thank you." After dropping Tamika at Mrs. Wilson's apartment, Brielle caught the streetcar to the Garden District, where the Marlowe Estate stood among other mansions, grand and imposing with its white columns and manicured gardens. At the service entrance, a harried event coordinator greeted her. "You're the replacement? Thank God. The band is already set up. You'll do 2 45-minute sets. Background music, nothing flashy. These people don't really listen anyway." Brielle nodded, swallowing her pride. It wasn't the first time she'd been told her talent was just background noise for the rich. The ballroom was breathtaking, with crystal chandeliers casting a golden glow over marble floors. Men in tailored suits and women dripping in jewels mingled, champagne glasses in hand. Brielle felt painfully out of place as she made her way to the small stage where the band was warming up. "Brielle Joyner," she introduced herself to the pianist, a middle-aged man with kind eyes. "Pete, these are the guys," he nodded toward the bassist and drummer. "We heard you can really sing. What's your repertoire?" "Anything you need," she said confidently. Music was the one thing she never doubted about herself. "Let's start with some Ella, move to Billy, throw in some Sarah Vaughan," Pete suggested, handing her a list. "Follow our lead, we'll follow yours." As the guests continued to arrive, the band began to play. Brielle closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the first notes of At Last flow from her lips. Her voice, rich and soulful, carried across the room, but as predicted, few people seemed to notice. They were too busy with their conversations, their networking, their world that was so different from hers, until she opened her eyes and saw him. Standing alone near a pillar, a champagne glass untouched in his hand, was a man unlike anyone else in the room. Tall and lean, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. He wasn't talking or pretending to listen to someone else. He was completely still, his eyes fixed on Brielle. She faltered for just a moment before regaining her composure. As she moved into the next song, God Bless the Child, she found herself singing directly to this stranger. There was something in his gaze, not the usual appreciation or desire she sometimes saw in men's eyes when she performed, but a recognition that unnerved her. During the break, Pete nudged her. "You've caught someone's attention." Brielle looked over to see the man still watching her. "Who is he?" "You don't know? That's Silas Wren, the streaming guy. Worth billions." Brielle had heard the name. Who hadn't? Silas Wren had revolutionized the music industry with his streaming platform, Wren Song. Artists loved him because he paid fairly, unlike most services, but he was known to be reclusive, rarely appearing at social events. "What's he doing here?" she asked. Pete shrugged. "Probably the same as everyone else. Obligation, networking. Who knows with these people?" When they started the second set, Brielle chose "I Put a Spell on You." She didn't know why, but she wanted to shake that man, Silas Wren, out of his stillness. She wanted him to feel something of what she felt every day, the struggle, the pain, the tiny triumphs. As she sang, she poured everything into her voice, her worry about Tamika, her exhaustion from working multiple jobs, her mother's death 3 years ago that had left her alone to care for her sister. She wasn't just singing, she was bleeding her truth through the music. When she finished the song, there was a moment of actual silence in the room before the chatter resumed, and Silas Wren was gone from his spot by the pillar. Brielle felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. The rest of the set passed quickly. As she thanked the band and prepared to leave, the event coordinator handed her an envelope with her payment. "Good job. They actually noticed you, which is rare." Brielle slipped the envelope into her small purse and made her way out through the kitchen, avoiding the main entrance where guests were still arriving. The night air felt good on her skin after the stuffy ballroom. "Miss Joyner." She turned, startled to find Silas Wren standing a few feet away. Up close, he was even more striking, his eyes a clear grey that seemed to see right through her. "Mr. Wren," she acknowledged, straightening her shoulders. "Your voice," he began, then stopped as if the words weren't coming easily. "I've never heard anything like it." "Thank you," she said simply, unsure how to respond to the intensity in his gaze. "May I offer you a ride home?" he asked. Brielle tensed. She'd received similar offers before, and they usually came with expectations she had no intention of fulfilling. "No, thank you. I'll take the streetcar." "At this hour? It's not safe." "I do it all the time," she replied, a hint of defiance in her voice. Did he think she had chauffeurs and private cars at her disposal? Something shifted in his expression. "Of course. I apologize." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "If you ever need anything." Brielle hesitated before taking the card. "I don't need anything, Mr. Wren." "Everyone needs something, Miss Joyner," he said quietly. Their fingers brushed as she took the card, and she felt an unexpected jolt. Quickly withdrawing her hand, she tucked the card into her purse without looking at it. "Good night, Mr. Wren," she said firmly, turning to walk away. "Good night, Miss Joyner. I hope I'll hear you sing again." Something in his voice made her pause, but she didn't look back. She couldn't afford to be distracted by rich men with intense eyes, no matter how they looked at her when she sang. The next morning, Brielle woke early despite her late night. Tamika needed breakfast before school, and Brielle had a shift at the cafe starting at 9. As she made toast and scrambled eggs, she thought about the envelope of cash in her purse. She'd pay the electricity bill today and take Tamika shopping for shoes after school. "Did you sing for fancy people last night?" Tamika asked, sliding onto a chair at their small kitchen table. "I did," Brielle smiled, setting a plate in front of her sister. "Did they like it?" Brielle thought of Silas Wren's face, the way he'd stood so still, listening. "One person did, I think." After dropping Tamika at school, Brielle headed to the cafe. Her boss, Gloria, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, greeted her with a nod. "You look tired, girl." "Late gig," Brielle explained, tying on her apron. "Singing will break your heart," Gloria warned, not for the first time. "My cousin sang backup for 20 years. All she got was varicose veins and a scrapbook full of might-have-beens." "It pays the bills," Brielle replied, though they both knew it barely did. The morning rush kept her busy, serving coffee and pastries to tourists and locals alike. When it slowed down around 11, Gloria nodded toward the front door. "Delivery for you." Brielle looked up to see a young man holding a bouquet of white lilies. "Brielle Joyner?" he called out. Confused, she approached him. "That's me. These are for you," he said, handing her the flowers and leaving before she could ask who sent them. Gloria raised an eyebrow. "Secret admirer?" Brielle found a small envelope nestled among the lilies. Inside was a handwritten note. "I didn't come to hear music, but I heard you. Please don't vanish." It wasn't signed, but she knew who had sent them. Silas Wren. "They're just from someone who heard me sing," she told Gloria, trying to sound casual. Gloria didn't look convinced. "Men who send flowers usually want something." "I know," Brielle said, but she couldn't help touching the delicate white petals. No one had sent her flowers since her high school boyfriend gave her a single rose on prom night. Throughout her shift, Brielle thought about the note. What did he mean? He heard her. And what did he expect in return? She'd dealt with enough men to know that their attention usually came with strings attached. When she picked up Tamika from school, her sister's face lit up at the sight of the flowers Brielle had brought with her. "Are those for me?" Tamika asked hopefully. "They're for both of us," Brielle smiled. "Let's go get those shoes and then we can put these in water at home." At the shoe store, Tamika tried on several pairs before settling on purple sneakers with silver stars. They were more expensive than Brielle had planned, but the joy on her sister's face was worth it. "Can I wear them now?" Tamika asked eagerly. "Of course, baby." As they walked home, Tamika skipping ahead in her new shoes, Brielle felt a moment of pure happiness. This was what mattered, taking care of her sister, making sure she had what she needed. Not rich men with intense eyes who sent flowers, but when they reached their apartment building, the happiness faded. A notice was taped to their door. Brielle pulled it down quickly before Tamika could see it, but she already knew what it was. Another warning about the late rent. They had 3 days before eviction proceedings would begin. $500 wasn't enough after all. It never was. That night, after Tamika was asleep, Brielle sat at their small kitchen table and counted out their money. Even with the gig payment, they were still short on rent. She could ask for extra shifts at the cafe, maybe find another singing job for the weekend. Almost without thinking, she reached into her purse and pulled out Silas Wren's business card. It was simple, elegant, with just his name and a phone number. No title, no company logo. She wouldn't call. She didn't need a rich man's help or pity, but she kept the card on the table as she made a list of places to call tomorrow, places that might need a singer on short notice. The next day was Friday, and Brielle had lined up a late-night gig at a jazz club in the French Quarter. It didn't pay nearly as well as the Marlowe estate job, but it was something. She was arranging for Mrs. Wilson to watch Tamika again when her phone rang with an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Miss Joyner, this is Silas Wren." Brielle's heart skipped. "How did you get my number?" "From the event coordinator at the Marlowe estate. I hope you don't mind." She did mind. She minded very much that he thought he could just call her like they knew each other. "What do you want, Mr. Wren?" There was a pause. "I'd like to talk to you about your music." "I don't have music, I just sing." "Then about your voice, your gift." Brielle almost laughed. "My gift doesn't pay the rent, Mr. Wren. Perhaps I could help with that." And there it was. The offer she'd been expecting, the rich man thinking he could buy what he wanted. "I'm not for sale," she said coldly. "That's not what I meant," he said quickly. "I run a music streaming service. I work with artists. I'd like to discuss professional opportunities." Brielle hesitated. Was he serious? "I don't record music. I just sing at events." "Maybe you should. Record, I mean." His voice was quiet but intense. "Your voice deserves to be heard by more than party guests who aren't really listening." She thought about the eviction notice, about Tamika's school fees coming due next month, about the leaking ceiling. "What exactly are you proposing? Dinner? A conversation? Nothing more?" Brielle closed her eyes. She didn't trust him, didn't trust any man who could send expensive flowers on a whim. But if there was even a chance he was serious about professional opportunities. "When?" she asked finally. "Tomorrow night? I could pick you up at 7. "No," she said firmly. "I'll meet you somewhere." She wasn't about to let him know where she lived. "The garden room at the Hotel Monteleone," he suggested. Brielle knew the place, an upscale restaurant she'd never be able to afford on her own. "Fine, 7 o'clock." After hanging up, she wondered if she'd made a mistake, but she couldn't afford to turn down potential opportunities, not with the eviction threat hanging over them. She didn't tell Tamika about the dinner. Instead, she asked Mrs. Wilson if Tamika could sleep over at her apartment. "Hot date?" Mrs. Wilson asked with a knowing smile. "Business meeting," Brielle corrected her. "About my singing." On Saturday evening, Brielle wore the same black dress from the Marlowe estate. It was the only thing she owned that would be appropriate for a place like the garden room. She caught the streetcar downtown, feeling nervous and out of place. The Hotel Monteleone was one of the grandest in the French Quarter, its lobby gleaming with marble and crystal. Brielle squared her shoulders as she walked through, reminding herself that she had as much right to be there as anyone. At the entrance to the garden room, a host in a tailored suit looked her up and down. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm meeting someone. Silas Wren." The host's demeanor changed instantly. "Of course, Ms. Joyner. Mr. Wren is waiting for you." He led her through the restaurant to a secluded table by a window overlooking a courtyard garden. Silas Wren stood as she approached, dressed in a simple but clearly expensive dark suit. "Miss Joyner, thank you for coming." He held out her chair. Brielle sat, keenly aware of the other diners, men and women who exuded wealth and privilege. "Let's be clear, Mr. Wren. I'm here to discuss business, nothing else." He took his seat across from her, his grey eyes studying her face. "Of course. Would you like some wine?" "No, thank you." She needed to keep her wits about her. A waiter appeared with menus, and Silas ordered for both of them after a quick glance at Brielle's overwhelmed expression at the unfamiliar French dishes. "Tell me about your background," he said once they were alone again. "How long have you been singing?" "All my life," she replied. "Church choir since I was 5. School performances. Nothing formal. No training. Some in high school. But college." She trailed off. After her mother got sick, there had been no money for college. "You don't need to explain," he said quietly. "Your voice speaks for itself." The food arrived. Delicate portions of seafood and vegetables arranged like art on white plates. Brielle tried to eat slowly, savoring flavors she'd never experienced before. "What did you mean in your note?" she asked suddenly. "That you heard me, not just music." Silas set down his fork. "Most singers perform. They hit the right notes, express the right emotions. But you communicate. There's truth in your voice. Pain, hope, life." Brielle felt exposed, as if he'd seen something she usually kept hidden. "I just sing the way I feel." "That's rare," he said. "Most people spend their lives hiding how they feel." "Is that what you do, Mr. Wren?" A shadow crossed his face. "Yes, most of the time." "Why did you really ask me here?" Brielle pressed. "There are thousands of good singers in New Orleans." Silas was quiet for a long moment. "I used to love music, really love it. But lately, it's just become a business to me. Numbers, algorithms, market share." He looked directly into her eyes. "When you sang, I remembered what music is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you feel alive." There was such honesty in his voice that Brielle felt her defenses wavering. But she couldn't afford to be naive. "That's very poetic, Mr. Wren. But feelings don't pay bills." "No, they don't," he agreed. "Which brings me to my proposal. I'd like you to record some songs at my studio. We'll release them on Wren Song, under whatever terms you're comfortable with. Full rights to your material, fair compensation." Brielle couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Why would you do that for someone you just met?" "Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted on background music at parties," he said simply. "And what do you get out of this arrangement?" Silas smiled slightly. "The satisfaction of introducing a new voice to the world, and maybe the chance to hear you sing again." Brielle wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this opportunity was real, that it came without strings attached, but experience had taught her to be cautious. "I need time to think about it," she said finally. "Of course." He reached into his jacket and pulled out another card, different from the first one. "This has my private number. Call me when you decide, no pressure." As they finished their meal, the conversation shifted to safer topics. New Orleans, music they both enjoyed, books they'd read. Brielle found herself relaxing, almost enjoying his company. Silas Wren was intelligent and surprisingly easy to talk to, despite his wealth and status. When they left the restaurant, he asked again if she would allow him to drive her home. "No," she said, more gently this time. "But thank you for dinner, and for the offer." "I meant what I said, Miss Joyner. Your voice deserves to be heard." Standing there in the warm evening air, with the sounds of the French Quarter around them, Brielle felt something shift between them, a moment of connection that went beyond business or obligation. "Good night, Mr. Wren," she said softly. "Good night, Brielle," he replied, using her first name for the first time. As she walked away, she could feel his eyes following her. And for the first time since she could remember, Brielle found herself wondering what it would be like to let someone see her, really see her, not just as a singer or a sister or a survivor, but as herself. But such thoughts were dangerous luxuries she couldn't afford, not with Tamika depending on her, not with the eviction notice waiting at home. Still, as she caught the streetcar back to their apartment, she couldn't help but touch the card in her pocket. A possibility, a chance, a risk. Silas Wren had heard something in her voice that night at the Marlowe estate, something true, and despite all her caution and suspicion, a part of Brielle wanted to know what would happen if she let that truth be heard by the world. Monday morning brought reality crashing back into Brielle's life. The weekend had been a strange dream, dinner with a billionaire, talks of recording opportunities, but now she stood in the principal's office at Tamika's school, feeling her world crumble around her. "I'm sorry, Miss Joyner, but we've been more than patient." Principal Watkins said, her voice firm but not unkind. Tamika's tuition is now 2 months overdue. If we don't receive payment by Friday, she won't be able to continue attending. Brielle gripped her purse tighter. I understand, I'll have the money by then. But as she walked out of the school building, she had no idea how she would keep that promise. The gigs she had lined up for the week would barely cover their rent, which was also overdue. Taking on more shifts at the cafe wasn't an option. Gloria had already cut back everyone's hours because business was slow. Tamika's education was the one thing Brielle refused to compromise on. Her sister was smart, brilliant even, and deserved every opportunity that Brielle herself had missed. After their mother died of cancer 3 years ago, Brielle had sworn she would give Tamika the chance to follow her dreams, whatever it took. Back at the apartment, Brielle sat at the kitchen table and pulled out Silas Wren's card. She stared at the number, weighing her options. What if his offer was genuine? What if he really did just want to help her record music? And what if he expected something in return that she wasn't willing to give? Before she could change her mind, she dialed the number. Silas Wren, he answered on the second ring. It's Brielle Joyner, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. About your offer to record, you've decided. There was a note of something like hope in his voice. I'd like to discuss it further, but I need to be clear about the terms. Of course. Are you free this afternoon? I could show you the studio. Brielle hesitated, then thought of Tamika's school fees. Yes. What time? 2 o'clock? I can send a car for you. This time she gave him her address. She couldn't afford the luxury of pride anymore. At precisely 2 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside her apartment building. Brielle had changed into her best jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wanted to look professional, not like she was trying too hard. The driver opened the door for her, and to her surprise, Silas was sitting in the back seat. I hope you don't mind that I came along, he said, looking more casual than at dinner in dark jeans and a grey button-down shirt. It's your car, she replied, settling into the soft leather seat across from him. As they drove through the city, Brielle gazed out the window, acutely aware of the growing distance between her neighborhood and the affluent garden district they were entering. The car pulled up to a restored Victorian mansion set back from the street behind a wrought-iron gate. This is your studio? She asked, unable to hide her surprise. Silas smiled slightly. It was a private home. I converted it last year. The acoustics are incredible. Inside, the mansion had been transformed. While the original architectural details remained, soaring ceilings, ornate moldings, hardwood floors, the space was now filled with state-of-the-art recording equipment, instruments, and comfortable seating areas. This is the main studio, Silas explained, leading her into what must have once been a grand parlor. There are smaller recording booths upstairs, and the engineers work from that room. He pointed to a glass-walled space where a young woman with bright blue hair waved at them. It's amazing, Brielle admitted, running her fingers lightly over a baby grand piano in the corner. Do you play? Silas asked. She shook her head. I always wanted to learn, but... She trailed off, not wanting to talk about money again. Try it, he encouraged. Hesitantly, Brielle sat at the piano and pressed a few keys, producing a disjointed melody. I work with dozens of artists, Silas said, watching her. Some of them are technically perfect, every note precisely where it should be, but they're forgettable. He moved closer, his voice dropping. You're not like that. There's something raw in your voice, something real. Brielle looked up at him, trying to understand what he wanted from her. Mr. Wren, Silas, please. Silas, I need to be honest with you. I need money. The words came out more bluntly than she'd intended. My sister's school is threatening to kick her out if I don't pay her tuition by Friday. Our apartment, we might be evicted. I can't afford to take chances on maybes and some days. Instead of being offended by her directness, Silas nodded. I appreciate your honesty, and I want to help. I don't want charity, she said quickly. It's not charity to pay an artist for their work. He sat down beside her on the piano bench, careful to leave space between them. Here's what I propose. We record 3 songs. I pay you in advance against future royalties, say $5,000. Brielle's breath caught. $5,000 would cover Tamika's tuition, their rent, and still leave some breathing room. Why would you do that? You barely know me. Silas was quiet for a moment. I used to believe in music, in its power to move people, to change them. Lately, it's just been business. He met her eyes. When you sang the other night, I remembered what it felt like to be moved by a voice. I want to capture that, share it. There was such sincerity in his words that Brielle found herself wanting to believe him. but a lifetime of disappointments had taught her caution. "I'll need a contract, something in writing that protects me." "Of course. My lawyers can draw something up today. You'll have full creative control and ownership of your recordings." It seemed too good to be true. "And what exactly would I have to record?" "Whatever you want. Songs that mean something to you. We can start with covers if you prefer, but I'd love to hear original material if you have any." Brielle hadn't written her own songs since high school, scribbling lyrics in notebooks during lunch breaks. "I might have some ideas." "Good." Silas stood up. "Let me show you the rest of the studio." As they toured the building, Brielle began to relax. The place was clearly a working studio, with engineers and other musicians coming and going. It wasn't just some rich man's plaything. In a smaller room upstairs, a wall of vinyl records caught her attention, hundreds of albums meticulously organized. "Your collection?" she asked. Silas nodded. "Music has always been my escape, even before it became my business." Brielle scanned the titles, impressed by the range: classic jazz, blues, soul, R&B, indie artists she'd never heard of. Her fingers stopped on a worn album cover featuring a beautiful black woman at a microphone, her head thrown back in song. "Eliza King," Silas said, his voice suddenly different. "Have you heard her?" Brielle shook her head. "No, I don't think so." Silas carefully took the album from the shelf. She had an incredible voice. Raw, emotional, like nothing I'd ever heard. There was something in his tone that made Brielle look at him more closely. "She died 5 years ago. Car accident." "I'm sorry," Brielle said, sensing there was more to the story. Silas put the record back on the shelf. "We should get those contracts started if you want to have the money by Friday." The abrupt change of subject told Brielle all she needed to know. Eliza King had meant something to Silas Wren, something he wasn't ready to talk about. By the end of the day, Brielle had signed a contract that her own lawyer, hastily consulted over the phone, confirmed was more than fair. The advance would be in her account by morning, and she was scheduled to begin recording on Wednesday. When the car dropped her off at her apartment, Silas walked her to the door. "Thank you," she said, feeling awkward, "for the opportunity." "Thank you for trusting me," he replied. "I know it wasn't easy." Their eyes met, and for a moment Brielle felt that strange connection again, as if he could see past her defenses to the person she really was. "Good night, Silas," she said softly. "Good night, Brielle." He waited until she was safely inside before returning to the car. Tamika was full of questions when she got home from her after-school program. "Who was that man? Why was he in a fancy car? Is he your boyfriend?" "No, he's not my boyfriend," Brielle laughed. "He's a business associate. He's going to help me record some songs." Tamika's eyes widened. "Are you going to be famous?" "I doubt it, baby girl, but I am going to be able to pay your school fees." The next morning, Brielle checked her bank account and nearly cried when she saw the deposit. $5,000, just as promised. She immediately paid Tamika's school tuition and their overdue rent, feeling as if a massive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. On Wednesday, Brielle arrived at the studio feeling both nervous and excited. She'd spent the previous evening going through old notebooks, looking at song lyrics she'd written years ago. There was one in particular, a ballad about her mother, that she thought might work. Silas was already there talking with a sound engineer. He smiled when he saw her. "Ready to make some music?" "I think so," she said, clutching her notebook. "This is Marcus," Silas introduced the engineer. "He'll be working with us today." Marcus showed her to a small recording booth where a microphone was set up. "We'll start with some test recordings to get levels, then move into the main studio for the actual tracks." Brielle nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. She'd never recorded in a professional studio before. "Just sing like you did that night at the Marlowe estate," Silas said through the intercom. "Forget about the equipment, the technology. Just sing your truth." Taking a deep breath, Brielle closed her eyes and began to sing Summertime, letting the familiar melody calm her nerves. By the time she reached the second verse, she'd forgotten about the microphones and the people watching. She was just singing, the way she always had. When she finished, she opened her eyes to see Silas and Marcus staring at her through the glass. "That was just a warm-up?" Marcus asked, shaking his head in disbelief. They moved to the main studio for the rest of the day, working through several jazz standards that Brielle knew well. Silas was a patient producer, encouraging her to try different approaches, but always trusting her instincts. By late afternoon, they had recorded 2 complete tracks that everyone was happy with. Brielle was exhausted but exhilarated. "One more?" Silas asked. "Or would you rather save your original song for tomorrow?" "How did you know I brought an original?" she asked, surprised. He smiled. I saw you holding onto that notebook like it contained state secrets. Brielle hesitated. The song she'd written was deeply personal, a tribute to her mother's strength during her illness. She wasn't sure she was ready to share it. Tomorrow, she decided. I want to get it right. Of course. Silas walked her to the car. Same time tomorrow. Actually, I have to pick up my sister from school at 3. Could we start earlier? We can start whenever you want. It's your recording session. As the car drove her home, Brielle felt a flutter of something unfamiliar. Hope, maybe. For the first time in years, she was doing something for herself, not just surviving. The next few days fell into a pattern. Brielle would arrive at the studio in the morning, they would record until early afternoon, and then she would leave to pick up Tamika. Sometimes Silas would join them for lunch, and Brielle was surprised by how easily conversation flowed between them. By the end of the week, they had recorded 5 songs, 3 jazz standards, and 2 of Brielle's originals, including the one about her mother. That one had been the hardest to record, her voice breaking with emotion several times before she got through it. When she finally nailed it, she looked up to see Silas watching her with an intensity that made her heart skip. There were tears in his eyes. "That was beautiful," he said simply. Later, as they listened to the playback of all 5 songs, Brielle could hardly believe the voice she was hearing was her own. The production was simple but perfect, highlighting the raw emotion in her performances. "What happens now?" she asked when the final track ended. "Now we release them," Silas said, "as a digital EP to start. See how people respond. If the reaction is good, maybe a vinyl pressing. Do you really think people will want to hear them?" Silas looked at her with that direct gaze that always made her feel as if he could see right through her. "I know they will. The world is hungry for authenticity, Brielle. For music that means something." Over the next 2 weeks, Brielle continued her regular gigs and shifts at the cafe, while Silas and his team prepared the EP for release. He called her daily with updates, and sometimes just to talk. Despite her initial wariness, she found herself looking forward to their conversations. One evening, he invited her to dinner at his home, just to celebrate the EP release, he assured her. "You can bring Tamika if you'd like." Brielle hesitated. Having dinner at a restaurant was one thing, going to his home felt more personal. But Tamika had been begging to meet the music man, as she called him. "Okay," she agreed. "We'll come." Silas's house was in the Garden District, not far from the studio, a beautiful Greek Revival mansion with a wide front porch. It was grand, but somehow welcoming, with warm lights glowing in the windows. "Wow," Tamika whispered as they walked up the steps. "It's like a castle." Silas himself opened the door, dressed casually in jeans and a blue sweater. "Welcome," he smiled, bending down to Tamika's level. "You must be the famous Tamika. Your sister talks about you all the time." Tamika giggled. "Are you really a billionaire?" "Tamika!" Brielle was mortified, but Silas just laughed. "I am, but that's the least interesting thing about me. Would you like to see my music room? I have a piano that plays by itself." Tamika's eyes widened. "Yes, please." As Silas led them through the house, Brielle was struck by how comfortable it felt. She had expected something cold and modern, a showcase for wealth. Instead, the rooms were filled with books, artwork, and musical instruments. It was clearly a home, not just a house. In the music room, a player piano sat in the corner. Silas showed Tamika how it worked, and soon she was delightedly watching the keys move on their own, playing a ragtime tune. "She loves music too," Brielle said, watching her sister. "Like her big sister." Silas smiled. "She has your spirit. She's smarter than I ever was. She deserves every chance to succeed." Silas looked at her thoughtfully. "That's why you work so hard. For her. She's all I have," Brielle said simply. Dinner was served in a cozy dining room, the table set with fine china, but the atmosphere relaxed. Silas had arranged for all of Tamika's favorite foods, fried chicken, mac and cheese, and chocolate cake for dessert. "Did Brie tell you what I like?" Tamika asked, impressed. "I may have done some research," Silas winked. After dinner, while Tamika explored the extensive library with Silas's housekeeper, Mrs. Bennett, Silas led Brielle out to a small rooftop garden. The night was warm, stars twinkling above the city lights. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small package. Inside was a flash drive. "What's this?" "Your EP. Brielle Joyner, unfiltered. It goes live on Rensong tomorrow." Brielle turned the flash drive over in her hands. "I can't believe this is really happening." "Believe it," Silas said softly. "Your voice deserves to be heard, Brielle." She looked up at him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "Thank you. For everything." Something shifted in his expression, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "I should be thanking you. Your music. It reminded me of things I'd forgotten." "Like what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That some things are worth the risk of getting hurt again." The air between them seemed charged with unspoken feelings. For a moment, Brielle thought he might kiss her, and more surprisingly, she realized she wanted him to. But then the moment passed, as Mrs. Bennet called out that Tamika had fallen asleep on the library sofa. "I should get her home," Brielle said, stepping back. Silas nodded. "Of course, I'll have my driver take you." As they carried a sleepy Tamika to the car, Brielle felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Whatever was happening between her and Silas, it was complicated by their different worlds, their different lives, and she couldn't afford complications, not when Tamika depended on her. The next morning, Brielle woke to her phone buzzing with notifications. The EP had been released at midnight, and already people were reacting. Her social media accounts, previously used mostly to announce gigs, were suddenly flooded with messages. "Your voice is incredible. Where have you been hiding? This is the most honest music I've heard in years." Stunned, Brielle sat on the edge of her bed, scrolling through the comments. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Her phone rang. It was Silas. "Have you seen the numbers?" he asked without preamble, his voice excited. 5,000 streams in the first 6 hours. That's unheard of for a new artist." "I don't understand," Brielle said, still in shock. "How are people even finding it?" Ren's song featured it on their front page, and I may have sent it to a few influencers I know. But Brielle, this is all about your voice. People are connecting with it. Throughout the day, the stream count continued to climb. By evening, it had reached 20,000. Silas called again, this time with even bigger news. "Marlo Hayes wants to feature you on her radio show tomorrow. It's the biggest music program in the South." "Tomorrow?" Brielle panicked. "I can't, I have work, and Tamika, I'll handle everything," Silas assured her. "This is a huge opportunity, Brielle. Marlo doesn't feature just anyone." The next morning found Brielle sitting in a radio studio, headphones on, heart pounding as Marlo Hayes, a legend in the music industry, introduced her EP. "I've been doing this show for 20 years, Marlo said on air, "and it's rare that I hear something that stops me in my tracks." But Brielle Joyner's voice did exactly that. There's a rawness, a truth in these recordings that you just don't hear anymore. When they played Mother's Hands, the song Brielle had written about her mom, Marlo had tears in her eyes. "Tell me about this song," she asked when it ended. Brielle took a deep breath. "I wrote it for my mother. She died of cancer 3 years ago. She was the strongest person I've ever known, even at the end. You can hear that love in every note," Marlo said. "And that's what makes these recordings so special. They're not perfect, they're real." After the show, Marlo took Brielle aside. "Silas Ren doesn't usually get involved with new artists personally. He must see something special in you." Brielle didn't know how to respond. "We're just working together." Marlo raised an eyebrow. "Honey, I've known Silas for years, since before he became Silas Ren Tech Billionaire. He used to be a musician himself, did you know that?" Brielle shook her head, surprised. "He was good too. Not great, but good. Then he turned to the business side of things, built Ren's song from nothing." Marlo looked at her thoughtfully. "He hasn't been personally involved in a recording project since Eliza died." "Eliza?" Brielle's heart skipped. "Eliza King." They were engaged. The accident happened 2 weeks before the wedding. Marlo's eyes softened. It nearly destroyed him. He threw himself into work, built an empire, but something in him shut down. Until now, apparently. As Silas's driver took her home, Brielle's mind was racing. Silas had been engaged to Eliza King, the woman whose record she'd noticed in his collection, the singer who had died. Suddenly, his interest in her voice took on new meaning. Was she just a replacement, a reminder of what he'd lost? The thought hurt more than it should have, given how little time she'd known him. But in those few weeks, something had changed. She'd begun to trust him, to see past his wealth to the man beneath, and she'd thought he saw her, really saw her. When she got home, there was a message from Silas asking how the interview went. She didn't reply. That night, after putting Tamika to bed, Brielle sat in their small living room and looked up Eliza King online. There weren't many videos, but the few she found showed a stunning woman with an incredible voice, rich, soulful, emotional, not unlike her own. In one interview, Eliza talked about her relationship with Silas. "He understands what music means to me. It's not just a business to him, it's a passion. That's what I love about him." Brielle closed her laptop, feeling sick. Had anything Silas said to her been genuine, or was she just filling a void left by the woman he'd lost? Her phone rang. Silas again. This time she answered. "Brielle, is everything okay? You didn't respond to my message. Why didn't you tell me about Eliza?" she asked, her voice tight. There was a long pause. "Who told you about her?" "Does it matter? You should have told me yourself. Was that why you approached me? Because I reminded you of her?" "No," he said firmly. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you've been using me as some kind of substitute. Can we talk about this in person?" he asked. "Please. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Brielle, listen to me. Yes, there are similarities between your voice and Eliza's. That's what caught my attention initially. But what made me want to work with you, to know you, that had nothing to do with her." She wanted to believe him, but the hurt was too fresh, the suspicion too strong. "I need some time to think. I understand, but please don't shut me out. What's happening with your music is real. The response to your EP is genuine." After they hung up, Brielle lay awake for hours, torn between anger and confusion. She had allowed herself to start trusting Silas, maybe even to have feelings for him. Now she didn't know what to believe. The next morning, she checked the stream count on her EP. It had passed 50,000. There were more messages, more comments from people moved by her music. Whatever Silas's motives might have been, the connection with listeners was real. She was about to call him when her phone buzzed with a text from Gloria at the cafe. "Have you seen this? Call me." Attached was a link to a tabloid website. The headline made her stomach drop. "Billionaire Silas Wren's new obsession, unknown singer Brielle Joyner." The article was filled with speculation about their relationship, referring to Brielle as Silas's latest acquisition and questioning whether she had the talent to match her looks. There were photos of them leaving the studio together, having lunch, even one of her and Tamika arriving at his house for dinner. Brielle felt physically ill. This was exactly what she had feared, being reduced to a rich man's plaything in the public eye. Everything she had worked for, all the genuine response to her music, tainted by gossip and innuendo. Her phone rang. It was Silas. "I just saw the article," he said before she could speak. "Brielle, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen." "But it did happen," she said, her voice shaking. "And now everyone will think exactly what I feared from the beginning, that I slept my way into a recording contract. No one who hears your music could possibly think that. You don't understand what it's like," she said, "to be judged, to be seen as nothing more than—" "I can't do this, Silas. I can't be your project or your redemption or whatever this is to you. That's not what you are to me," he said, and she could hear the pain in his voice. "Brielle, please, I need space," she cut him off. "Don't call me again." She hung up, tears streaming down her face. Everything had happened so fast. The recording, the release, the sudden attention. And somewhere along the way, she had begun to care for Silas in a way she hadn't expected. But now it was all tainted. Her voice, which had always been her own, pure and true, was being commodified, packaged as Silas Wren's discovery. And the worst part was not knowing if that had been his intention all along. As she wiped away her tears, Brielle made a decision. She would continue singing. It was the only thing that had ever truly been hers, but she would do it on her own terms, not as someone's project or replacement. She had allowed herself to hope for something more, something beyond the daily struggle for survival. But hope was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when the cost was her integrity, her sense of self. With a heavy heart, she blocked Silas's number and deleted the Wren Song app from her phone. Whatever was happening with her EP, she didn't want to know. It was time to go back to reality, to the cafe shifts and late-night gigs, to taking care of Tamika, to the life she had built on her own. But as she looked out the window at the morning sun, Brielle couldn't help but remember the way Silas had looked at her that night on his rooftop. "Some things are worth the risk of getting hurt again," he had said. She had begun to believe him, and that was the most painful part of all. 2 weeks passed without a word from Silas. Brielle threw herself back into her routine, shifts at the cafe, picking up Tamika from school, singing at small venues on weekends. She tried to pretend that nothing had changed, that the brief glimpse of another life had never happened. But everything had changed. People recognized her now. Customers at the cafe would whisper when she served them coffee. At her weekend gigs, the small clubs were suddenly packed, with people recording snippets of her performances on their phones. "You're famous," Gloria remarked one morning as they prepared the cafe for opening. "I heard your song on the radio yesterday." Brielle stiffened. "Which one?" "The one about your mama." "Mother's hands." Made me cry, girl. Gloria looked at her curiously. Why aren't you happier about this? Isn't this what you wanted? I don't know what I want anymore, Brielle admitted. The bell above the door jingled and they both looked up. A tall woman in an expensive suit entered, her eyes scanning the cafe before landing on Brielle. Ms. Joyner, I'm Vanessa Clark from Atlantic Records. She extended a business card. Do you have a moment to talk? Gloria nudged Brielle. Go on, I'll cover for you. In a corner booth, Vanessa got straight to the point. Your EP is generating serious buzz. We'd like to offer you a recording contract with Atlantic. Full album, promotional tour, the works. Brielle stared at her, stunned. But I already recorded with Ren Song. A 5-song EP. We're talking about a major label deal. Vanessa leaned forward. Between us, there's a reason most artists don't stay with Ren Song. It's a good platform for exposure, but for a career, you need a real label. I don't understand. Why would you want me? Vanessa smiled. Because you have what can't be manufactured. Authenticity. Your voice makes people feel something real. That's rare these days. It was everything Brielle had ever dreamed of, a real recording contract, a chance at a career in music. But all she could think about was Silas, and how this would feel like a betrayal. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, but don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't come around every day. Vanessa stood to leave. And Ms. Joyner? Whatever your relationship with Silas Wren, don't let it limit your potential. After Vanessa left, Brielle's head was spinning. A real contract. A tour, everything she'd fantasized about on those late nights when Tamika was asleep, and she allowed herself to dream. But what about Tamika? A tour would mean leaving her behind, something Brielle had sworn she would never do. And what about Silas? Despite everything, she couldn't ignore the ache she felt when she thought of him. That evening, as she walked home with Tamika, a familiar black car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down to reveal not Silas, but a woman with sharp features and calculating eyes. Ms. Joyner, I'm Catherine Wren, Silas's sister. Brielle tensed. What do you want? A conversation. Please get in. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. Catherine sighed. Very well. I'll be direct. My brother is making a mistake with you, and I'd like to correct it before it goes any further. Tamika looked up at Brielle, confused. Who is she? No one important, Brielle said, tightening her grip on her sister's hand. Let's go. Wait, Catherine called. I'm prepared to offer you $100,000 to sign over rights to your recordings and walk away from Silas. Brielle stopped cold. Excuse me? He's not thinking clearly. He's letting emotions cloud his judgment. It's affecting the company, his focus. Catherine pulled an envelope from her purse. This is a check and a release form. Sign it and you can disappear. Do whatever you want with your life, just without my brother in it. Anger surged through Brielle. Do you think I'm with your brother for his money? Aren't all women like you? Women like me? Brielle's voice rose. You don't know anything about me. I know you came from nothing. I know you have a sister to support. I know opportunities must be few and far between. Catherine's voice was cold. Take the money, Ms. Joyner. It's more than fair. Brielle took a step closer to the car. I'm not with your brother at all, as it happens. We worked together briefly, nothing more. But if I were with him, it wouldn't be for his money. And there isn't enough money in the world to make me sign away my music. She looked straight into Catherine's eyes. Now leave us alone. She turned away, guiding Tamika down the street. Behind them, the car window rolled up, and the vehicle pulled away from the curb. Was that really Mr. Silas's sister? Tamika asked, wide-eyed. Yes, baby, but she's nothing like him. Is Mr. Silas your boyfriend? Tamika persisted. Brielle sighed. No, he's just someone I used to know. That night, after Tamika was asleep, Brielle finally allowed herself to do what she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. She looked up her EP online. The numbers were staggering. Over 500,000 streams, thousands of comments. And her original song, Mother's Hands, had been added to several influential playlists. Despite the tabloid stories, despite Catherine Wren's insulting offer, people were connecting with her music. That was real. That was hers. With trembling fingers, she unblocked Silas's number and sent a text. We need to talk. His response came immediately. Name the place and time. Brielle suggested the next morning at a small park near her apartment. It was neutral ground, public but quiet enough for a private conversation. She arrived early, sitting on a bench near the playground where a few children were already running and climbing despite the early hour. When Silas approached, her heart skipped. He looked tired, his usual polished appearance slightly rumpled as if he hadn't been sleeping well. "Brielle," he said her name like a prayer, stopping a few feet away as if unsure of his welcome. "Sit down," she said, gesturing to the bench. He sat, leaving space between them. "I've missed you." The simple honesty of his words made her throat tight. "I met your sister yesterday." Silas's expression darkened. "Catherine came to see you. What did she want?" "To pay me off. $100,000 to sign away my music and stay away from you." "I'm going to kill her," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Brielle, I had no idea, I swear. I believe you." And she did. Whatever else might be true, she knew Silas would never have approved such a scheme. "She seems to think I'm after your money. Catherine sees threats everywhere. It's why she's so good at business and so bad at relationships." He hesitated. "What did you tell her?" "That I wouldn't sign away my music for any amount of money, and that we weren't together anyway." Pain flashed across his face. "Is that still true? That we're not together?" Brielle looked down at her hands. "I don't know what we are, Silas. I don't know if I can trust what I feel around you. Because of Eliza." "Yes." She finally voiced the fear that had been haunting her. "Am I just a replacement? Someone whose voice reminds you of what you lost?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. "When Eliza died, something in me died too. I stopped listening to music for pleasure. I stopped feeling anything, really. I built Rensong because it was what she would have wanted, but it became just business to me." He looked at Brielle, his eyes intense. "And then I heard you sing. Yes, there was something in your voice that reminded me of her, that raw emotion, that truth. But Brielle, what I feel for you, it's not about replacing her. It's about finding something I never thought I'd feel again." "And what's that?" "Hope." The word hung between them. "You don't just remind me of Eliza. You remind me of what it feels like to be alive, to care about something, someone more than success or money or power." Brielle wanted to believe him, but there was still too much unsaid. "Atlantic Records offered me a contract yesterday." Surprise and hurt crossed his face. "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. They're offering things you can't. A full album, a tour. I could match that offer." She shook her head. "That's not the point. I need to know that whatever I decide, it's because it's right for me and Tamika, not because of whatever is happening between us." Silas nodded slowly. "I understand. But before you decide anything, there's something I want to show you." He stood up, offering his hand. "Will you come with me?" Hesitantly, Brielle took his hand. "Where are we going?" "To the studio. There's something you need to hear." The studio was quiet when they arrived, no engineers or other artists around. Silas led her to the main recording room and gestured for her to sit. "After you blocked my number, I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on work." He moved to the sound console. "So, I did the only thing that made sense. I recorded this." He pressed a button and music filled the room, a simple piano melody that was somehow both melancholy and hopeful, and then Silas's voice joined in, rich and surprisingly powerful, singing words that made Brielle's heart ache. It was a song about losing your way and finding it again through someone else's eyes, about second chances and the courage to take them, about hearing someone's voice and remembering how to listen with your heart. When it ended, there were tears on Brielle's cheeks. "You wrote that?" Silas nodded. "For you, not for Eliza. For you, Brielle. I didn't know you could sing like that. I haven't, not since before Eliza died." He moved closer, kneeling in front of her. "I'm not asking you to stay with Rensong if Atlantic's offer is better for your career. I'm not asking you to be with me if that's not what you want. I'm just asking you to believe that what I feel for you is real. It's not about the past. It's about now, about the future." Brielle looked into his eyes and saw the truth there, the vulnerability, the hope, the fear of rejection. This wasn't the billionaire businessman or the grieving fiancé. This was just Silas, a man asking for a chance. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not just of being hurt, but of hurting Tamika. She's my responsibility. I can't make decisions based just on what I want." "I know, and I admire that about you, your devotion to her." Silas took her hands in his. "Whatever you decide about your career, about us, I want to help create a space where you can sing on your terms, not as my project, not as Atlantic's new star, but as Brielle Joyner, the woman whose voice made me remember what matters." Something shifted inside Brielle, a wall crumbling. She had spent so long being strong, carrying everything alone, that the idea of sharing that burden was both terrifying and tempting. "I need time," she said finally, "to think, to figure out what's best for Tamika and me. Take all the time you need, Silas said, squeezing her hands gently. I'll be here. As they left the studio, Brielle felt lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. Nothing was resolved, not really, but at least now the questions were in the open. Silas walked her to his car. Can I drive you home? Actually, I'd like to walk. Clear my head. He nodded, understanding. Brielle, thank you for listening, for giving me a chance to explain. She looked up at him, this man who had upended her life in so many ways. Thank you for the song. No one's ever written one for me before. As she walked home, Brielle's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. Silas's song had touched her deeply, not just because of the words or the melody, but because of what it represented, his willingness to be vulnerable, to open himself up again after so much loss. But the practical problems remained. Atlantic's offer promised financial security and career advancement, but it would mean touring, time away from Tamika. And a relationship with Silas would bring its own complications. The differences in their worlds, the public scrutiny, Catherine's obvious disapproval. When she reached her apartment, Tamika was already home from school, working on homework at the kitchen table. Where were you? She asked, looking up from her math problems. Talking with Mr. Silas, Brielle answered honestly. Tamika's face brightened. Is he your boyfriend now? It's complicated, baby. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to answer, Tamika said with the wisdom of her 12 years. Do you like him? Brielle smiled despite herself. Yes, I do. Does he like you? I think so. Then what's complicated? Out of the mouths of babes, Brielle thought. If only it were that simple. Later that evening, after Tamika was in bed, Brielle took out her old notebooks and began to write. New lyrics, new melodies flowing from some deep place inside her. She wrote about fear and hope, about walls coming down, about hearing someone's truth in a song, about the courage it takes to believe in second chances. By morning, she had 3 new songs, raw, unpolished, but honest. More honest than anything she'd written before. She called Gloria and asked for the day off, then dropped Tamika at school with a promise to pick her up early for a special afternoon together. At Atlantic Records, Vanessa Clark welcomed her warmly, assuming she'd come to accept the offer. Her smile faded when Brielle explained her decision. I appreciate the opportunity, truly, but I'm not ready for a tour. My sister needs me here. We could work around that, Vanessa insisted. Limited appearances, weekend shows. Brielle shook her head. It's not just that. I need to make music my way, on my terms, without pressure to be something I'm not. This is about Silas Wren, isn't it? Vanessa's voice cooled. You're making a mistake, Ms. Joyner. Wrensong is a platform, not a label. They can't offer you what we can. Maybe not, but they're offering me what I need right now. Creative control, time with my sister, a chance to find my voice without rushing. Brielle stood to leave. Thank you for your interest. Maybe someday our paths will cross again. As she left the Atlantic offices, Brielle felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. Had she just turned down the opportunity of a lifetime? Or had she saved herself from a path that would have taken her away from what mattered most? Her next stop was the Wrensong studio, but Silas wasn't there. Marcus, the sound engineer, told her he was at a board meeting at the company headquarters. Can I use the studio for a few hours? She asked. I have some new songs I want to record, just rough demos. Marcus looked surprised but pleased. Of course, I'll set you up in Studio B. For the next 3 hours, Brielle lost herself in the music, recording the songs she'd written overnight. No production tricks, no fancy arrangements, just her voice, a piano, and the truth of what she was feeling. When she finished, she asked Marcus for a copy on a flash drive. Are these for the next EP? He asked as he transferred the files. I'm not sure yet. They're just for me right now. And maybe for Silas, she thought, but didn't say. She picked up Tamika early from school as promised, and they spent the afternoon at the zoo, laughing at the monkeys and sharing cotton candy. It was the kind of simple pleasure they'd rarely been able to afford before, and Brielle savored every moment of her sister's delight. Are we rich now? Tamika asked as they watched the elephants. Because of your singing? Brielle smiled. Not rich, baby, but we're okay. We don't have to worry so much anymore. Good, because I like it when you're not worried. You smile more. Children saw everything, Brielle thought, even the things you tried to hide from them. That evening, she made a decision. She texted Silas. Can you come over tomorrow night? Dinner at our place. Tamika wants to make you her famous spaghetti. His response was immediate and enthusiastic. I'd love that. What time? Brielle looked around their small apartment. It was nothing like Silas's mansion, but it was home. their home. And if he was going to be part of their lives, he needed to see them as they really were, not just as he imagined them to be. The next day, Brielle cleaned the apartment, while Tamika insisted on making homemade garlic bread to go with her famous spaghetti, which was really just pasta with sauce from a jar, but Brielle wasn't about to correct her. "Is Mr. Silas really coming to our house?" Tamika asked for the third time, vibrating with excitement. "Yes, baby. And it's very important that we just be ourselves, okay? No showing off, no pretending to be something we're not. But can I show him my science project? The one that got an A?" Brielle laughed. "Of course you can." At precisely 7 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Tamika raced to answer it before Brielle could stop her. "Mr. Silas," she exclaimed, "you came." Silas stood in the doorway, looking more casual than Brielle had ever seen him, in jeans and a simple button-down shirt. In his hands were a bouquet of flowers, not expensive lilies this time, but cheerful sunflowers, and a wrapped package. "Of course I came," he smiled at Tamika. "I heard you make the best spaghetti in New Orleans." Tamika giggled. "It's from a jar, but I made the garlic bread myself." "Then I can't wait to try it." Silas looked past her to Brielle, his eyes softening. "Hi." "Hi," she said, feeling suddenly shy. "Come in." Their apartment must have seemed tiny and shabby compared to what he was used to, but Silas showed no sign of discomfort as he handed the flowers to Brielle. "These are for you," he said, then gave the package to Tamika. "And this is for you." Tamika tore open the wrapping to reveal a book about space exploration. "Wow, thank you. How did you know I love space?" "A little bird told me." Silas winked at Brielle. Dinner was a relaxed affair, with Tamika dominating the conversation, telling Silas about school, her friends, and her dream of becoming an astronaut someday. Silas listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made her beam with pride. "You'd need to study hard," he told her. "Math, science, engineering, but I have no doubt you could do it. That's what Brie always says, that I can do anything if I work hard enough." "Your sister is a very wise woman," Silas said, his eyes meeting Brielle's across the table. After dinner, Tamika insisted on showing Silas her room, proudly displaying her science project, a detailed model of the solar system. "The sun is actually a lot bigger compared to the planets," she explained seriously, "but I couldn't fit it if I made it to scale." "It's very impressive," Silas told her. "You clearly put a lot of work into it." When it was time for bed, Tamika surprised them both by giving Silas a hug. "Will you come back again?" she asked. "If it's okay with your sister, I'd like that very much," he replied, looking to Brielle for confirmation. She nodded, her heart full at the sight of them together. After tucking Tamika in, Brielle joined Silas in the living room. "Thank you for being so good with her. She doesn't usually warm up to people so quickly. She's an amazing kid, smart, curious, confident. You've done an incredible job with her. I've tried. It hasn't always been easy." Silas moved closer on the couch. "I know, and that's what makes it all the more impressive." He took her hand. "Brielle, I need to tell you something. I talked to my lawyers today about setting up a trust for Tamika's education. No strings attached, regardless of what happens between us." Brielle stiffened. "Silas, I don't want your money. It's not for you. It's for her. To make sure she has every opportunity to become that astronaut, or whatever else she dreams of being." His voice was gentle but firm. "You don't have to accept, but please think about it, not as charity, but as an investment in an extraordinary young woman's future." Brielle's first instinct was to refuse. Her pride, her fierce independence rebelled at the idea. But wasn't that exactly what she'd promised herself? That Tamika would have every chance she herself had missed? "I'll think about it," she said finally. Silas nodded, accepting her answer without pushing. "There's something else." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. "I listened to the demos you recorded yesterday. They're incredible, Brielle. Raw, honest, powerful." She blushed. "They're just rough ideas. They're much more than that. I've been in this business a long time. What you have, it's special." He leaned closer. "I want to produce a full album with you. Not as a replacement for Eliza, not as my project, but as a partner. Your songs, your voice, your vision. I'll provide the studio, the distribution, whatever support you need, but the creative decisions will be yours." Brielle's heart raced. "What about touring, promotion?" "We'll work around Tamika's schedule. Weekend shows, school holidays. Or no touring at all if that's what you prefer. Your music will find its audience, Brielle, I believe that. It was everything Atlantic had offered, but without the pressure, without the sacrifice of time with Tamika. And it came from a man who had written a song just for her, who had opened himself up again after years of grief, who looked at her 12-year-old sister and saw not a burden, but a brilliant future astronaut. "You make it hard to say no," she said softly. "That's the idea." His smile was gentle, his eyes never leaving hers. "Brielle, I'm not asking you to trust me completely, not yet. I know I need to earn that, but I am asking you to give us a chance, to see where this might go, both personally and professionally." As he spoke, Brielle realized something. The fear was still there, fear of dependency, fear of disappointment, fear of loss. But for the first time, the hope was stronger. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to do everything alone anymore. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Okay to which part?" "All of it. The album, the trust for Tamika." She took a deep breath. "And us, seeing where this goes." The joy that spread across Silas's face made her heart skip. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle at first, then deeper as she responded, her hands coming up to touch his face. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Silas rested his forehead against hers. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "It's getting late." Brielle nodded, though part of her wanted him to stay. They both knew they needed to take things slowly, for Tamika's sake as much as their own. At the door, he kissed her once more. "Good night, Brielle. Thank you for dinner, for letting me into your home, your life. Good night, Silas." As she closed the door behind him, Brielle leaned against it, her heart full of a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. Joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Catherine's disapproval, the public scrutiny, the balancing of two very different worlds, they would face them together. And for the first time since her mother died, Brielle allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, happy endings weren't just for fairy tales. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of music and laughter. During the day, Brielle worked with Silas and Marcus in the studio, bringing her new songs to life. In the evenings, Silas often joined her and Tamika for dinner, helping with homework, playing board games, becoming a fixture in their small apartment. Slowly, the walls that Brielle had built around her heart began to come down. She found herself sharing stories of her mother, of the struggles after her death, of dreams she'd never dared to voice before. And Silas listened, really listened, in a way no one had in years. He shared too, about his own family, his complicated relationship with Catherine, the grief that had nearly destroyed him after Eliza's death, about how music had been his salvation and then his prison, until Brielle's voice had set him free again. One evening, as they sat on the small balcony of her apartment, while Tamika did homework inside, Silas took her hand. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice unusually serious. Brielle's heart skipped. "What is it?" "The album is almost finished. I'd like to arrange a small showcase, just a few dozen people, industry professionals, some press, a chance for them to hear the music as it's meant to be heard, live and intimate." It wasn't what she'd expected him to say, and relief mixed with disappointment. "When?" "2 weeks from now, at the Maple Leaf Bar. Small venue, great acoustics. What do you think?" The idea of performing her original songs in front of industry people was terrifying. These weren't covers at corporate events or standards at jazz clubs. These were pieces of her soul, set to music. "I don't know, Silas. That's so soon." "You're ready, Brielle. The album is beautiful. Your voice has never been stronger." He squeezed her hand. "But if you're not comfortable, we can wait." She took a deep breath. "No, you're right. It's time to stop hiding." The preparation for the showcase consumed the next 2 weeks. Rehearsals with the band Silas had assembled, finalizing the set list, choosing what to wear. Through it all, Silas was her rock, encouraging without pushing, supporting without taking over. Catherine called once, asking to meet. Brielle agreed, bracing herself for another confrontation. But to her surprise, Silas's sister was almost conciliatory. "I misjudged you," Catherine admitted over coffee. "Silas hasn't been this focused, this alive in years. Whatever you're doing, it's good for him." And she added reluctantly, "Your music is exceptional. The album is the best thing Rensong has produced in a long time." Coming from Catherine, it was high praise indeed. The night of the showcase arrived, cool and clear. The Maple Leaf Bar, normally casual and relaxed, had been transformed. Small candles flickered on tables, creating an intimate atmosphere. A grand piano stood on the small stage, along with microphones for the backing musicians. Backstage, Brielle peeked through the curtain. The place was packed, just as Silas had promised. Industry executives, music critics, even a few celebrities sat expectantly, cocktails in hand. Panic fluttered in her chest. "I can't do this," she whispered. Silas appeared beside her, calm and steady. "Yes, you can. They're just people, Brielle. And once you start singing, they'll disappear. It'll just be you and the music. Promise?" He kissed her gently. "Promise." From the side of the stage, Tamika gave her a thumbs up. She was sitting with Mrs. Wilson, special guests of honor, at a table near the front. Taking a deep breath, Brielle stepped onto the stage. The lights were warm on her skin, the microphone cool in her hand. She looked out at the sea of expectant faces and felt her heart racing, and then she began to sing. The first notes were shaky, but as the melody took hold, her voice gained strength. She sang about her mother's hands, strong even in illness, about nights spent wondering how to keep going when hope seemed lost, about finding unexpected light in the darkness. Song after song, she poured her heart out, each one more powerful than the last. The audience was silent, captivated. Even the bartenders had stopped to listen. For her final number, she moved to the piano. "This is a new song," she said softly into the microphone. "I wrote it last week. It's called The Song You Stayed For." Her fingers found the keys, and she began to play the simple, haunting melody she'd composed thinking of Silas, of how he had heard something in her voice that night at the Marlowe estate, of how he had stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. As the last note faded, there was absolute silence. Then from the back of the room, someone began to applaud. Others joined in until the whole bar was on its feet, the applause thunderous in the small space. Brielle blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the response. She looked to the side of the stage where Silas stood, his own eyes shining with unshed tears, pride radiating from every part of him. In that moment, everything felt possible. The music she'd created from her pain and hope had touched others. Her voice, once just a means of survival, had become something more, a bridge between hearts, a light in the darkness. After the show, people crowded around, offering congratulations, business cards, promises of collaboration. Brielle accepted their words with grace, but her eyes kept finding Silas across the room, their private joy, a secret current beneath the public success. Later, after Tamika had been taken home by Mrs. Wilson after the last guests had departed, Brielle and Silas sat alone in the empty bar. "You were magnificent," he said, his voice husky with emotion. "I knew you would be. I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "Any of it." He took her hand, his expression suddenly serious. "Brielle, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. Something important." This time she knew it wasn't about music or business. Her heart raced as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "It might seem too soon," he said, his voice catching. "And if it is, I understand. But I've spent 5 years hiding from life, from love. I don't want to waste another day." He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Brielle Joyner, will you marry me?" The world seemed to stop. Through the window she could see the stars over New Orleans, the same stars that had witnessed her struggles, her fears, her small triumphs, stars that now seemed to shine with new possibility. "Silas," she began, her voice trembling. But before she could answer, the door to the bar burst open. A frantic-looking Mrs. Wilson stood there, her face pale. "Brielle, it's Tamika. She's in the hospital. There was an accident. The cab we were in." The world tilted. The ring, the proposal, everything vanished as terror gripped Brielle's heart. "What hospital?" Silas demanded, already pulling out his phone. "Tulane Medical Center," Mrs. Wilson said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Brielle. The car came out of nowhere." Brielle couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Tamika, her baby sister, the one person who had been her constant, her reason for everything. "My car's outside," Silas said, his arm strong around her waist as her knees threatened to give way. "We'll be there in 10 minutes. As they raced through the night streets of New Orleans, Brielle clutched Silas's hand like a lifeline. The triumph of the showcase, the joy of the proposal, all forgotten in the face of this new terror. "She has to be okay," she whispered, a prayer more than a statement. "She has to be." Silas held her close, his own face tight with worry. "She will be. She's strong like her sister." At the hospital, they were directed to the emergency department where Tamika had been taken. A doctor met them in the waiting room, her expression grave. "Ms. Joyner, I'm Dr. Martinez. Your sister is stable, but she has a concussion and a broken arm. We're keeping her overnight for observation just to be safe. Can I see her? Brielle asked, her voice trembling. Of course, she's been asking for you. This way. Silas squeezed her hand. I'll wait here. She needs her sister now. Brielle followed the doctor down a sterile hallway, her heart pounding. When they reached Tamika's room, she gasped at the sight of her little sister looking so small in the hospital bed, her arm in a cast, a bandage on her forehead. Bree! Tamika's face lit up despite her injuries. Did you see? I got a blue cast. Relief washed over Brielle as tears spilled down her cheeks. She rushed to the bed, carefully gathering Tamika in her arms. How you scared me half to death, baby girl. I'm okay, Tamika assured her. Mrs. Wilson was crying a lot, though. Is she all right? She's fine, just worried about you. Brielle smoothed Tamika's hair back from the bandage. What happened? We were in the taxi and then there was a big crash. The airbags went off. Tamika looked up at her sister. Is Mr. Silas here too? He's in the waiting room. He drove me here. Can he come in? I want to show him my cast. Brielle nodded, sending a quick text to Silas. He appeared moments later, his face relaxing with relief when he saw Tamika alert and talking. Hey, astronaut, he said gently. That's quite an adventure you had tonight. Look at my cast, Tamika said proudly. The doctor said people can sign it. I'd be honored to be the first, Silas replied, producing a pen from his pocket. As he carefully wrote a message on Tamika's cast, Brielle watched them together, her sister and the man who had changed both their lives in such a short time. The fear of losing Tamika had clarified everything. Life was too short, too precious to waste on doubts and fears. When the nurse came to check Tamika's vitals, Brielle and Silas stepped into the hallway. Thank you, she said softly, for being here, for everything. Silas took her hands in his. There's nowhere else I would be. Brielle took a deep breath. About what you asked earlier before we were interrupted. His eyes searched her face. You don't have to answer now. It was too soon. I know that. No, she said firmly. It wasn't too soon. At least not for how I feel. She squeezed his hands. My answer is yes, Silas. Yes, I'll marry you. Joy blazed across his face as he pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as if afraid she might disappear. I love you, Brielle Joyner, he whispered against her hair. I love you too, she replied, the words coming easily now, all doubts washed away by the night's fear and relief. When they returned to Tamika's room, hand in hand, her sister took one look at their faces and grinned. Did Mr. Silas ask you to marry him? She asked bluntly. Brielle's jaw dropped. How did you? He asked my permission last week, Tamika said proudly. I said yes, but only if he promised to help me build a rocket someday. Silas laughed. And I intend to keep that promise. As Tamika chatted excitedly about being a flower girl, Brielle felt a peace she hadn't known in years settle over her. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be adjustments, compromises, Catherine's lingering disapproval to contend with. But for the first time, she wasn't facing it alone. She had Tamika, her brilliant, resilient sister. And now she had Silas, a man who had heard her when no one else was listening, a man who had stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. 6 months after the showcase at the Maple Leaf Bar, Brielle's album Unfiltered was climbing the charts, defying industry expectations. No major label marketing campaign, no nationwide tour, just word of mouth and the undeniable power of her voice spreading through social media and streaming platforms. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Silas's Garden District home, now their home, as Brielle sipped coffee at the kitchen island. Tamika was in the backyard with her science tutor, building a model rocket as part of her accelerated program at her new school. Have you seen the latest numbers? Silas asked, coming into the kitchen with his tablet. His hair was still damp from the shower, and he wore the relaxed expression that had become his normal look these past months. I'm trying not to obsess, Brielle replied, though she couldn't help smiling at his enthusiasm. Number 7 on the Billboard chart. For an independent release, that's unheard of. He kissed her forehead. You're changing the game, Brielle. She leaned into him, still amazed at how natural it felt to be here, in this life that had once seemed so far beyond her reach. We're changing it together. Their engagement had made headlines, of course. Billionaire tech mogul to wed unknown singer had been the most common headline, though a few more thoughtful pieces had focused on the music rather than the relationship. Catherine had eventually come around, especially after hearing the full album. It's a solid business decision, she'd admitted grudgingly. Her talent is undeniable, and, she'd added, looking directly at Brielle, my brother is happier than I've seen him in years. The wedding was planned for next spring. a small ceremony in the garden behind the house. Nothing lavish or showy, just family and close friends. Tamika would be the maid of honor, a role she took very seriously, already planning her speech down to the last detail. "What time is your meeting with Marcus?" Silas asked, refilling her coffee cup. 11. We're finalizing the track list for the vinyl pressing. Brielle still couldn't believe people wanted her music on vinyl, that tangible piece of artistic permanence. "And your interview?" 2 o'clock. It's just a phone call with that music blog. She hesitated. "Are you sure you don't mind me talking about everything?" Silas took her hands. "Your story is yours to tell, Brielle. All of it. The struggles, the doubts, even the parts about me. I trust you." That trust had been the foundation they'd built on these past months. Trust that they could blend their very different lives, that they could create something new together without losing themselves in the process. It hadn't always been easy. There had been adjustments, Brielle learning to accept help without feeling diminished, Silas learning to make space for Tamika's needs as well as Brielle's independence. There had been arguments, misunderstandings, moments of doubt, but through it all, there had been music. Music as a bridge, as a healing force, as the common language they shared even when words failed them. "I should get going," Brielle said, glancing at the clock. "Would you check on Tamika's progress with the rocket? She gets so excited she forgets about safety sometimes." "Already on my to-do list," Silas assured her, "and I've got dinner covered tonight. That new chef I hired is teaching me to make gumbo." Brielle laughed. "You cooking gumbo? This I have to see." "Hey, I'm a fast learner." He pulled her close for a kiss. "Have a good day. I love you." "Love you too," she replied, still marveling at how easily those words now came to her lips. At the studio, Marcus was waiting with the preliminary vinyl designs for her approval. "We've got 2 options for the cover art," he explained, showing her the mock-ups. The first was a stylized portrait of Brielle at the microphone, eyes closed, lost in song. The second was simpler, just her profile against a dark background, her face half in shadow, half in light. "This one," she said without hesitation, pointing to the second option. "It's more honest." "That's what I thought you'd say," Marcus grinned. "By the way, have you heard about Marlo Hayes' retirement concert? She's been asking if you'd perform." Brielle blinked in surprise. "Marlo wants me to sing at her retirement show, but she's a legend. A legend who's a big fan of yours, apparently." Marcus handed her another folder. "Here's the formal invitation. It's a pretty big deal. Network television, all the industry heavyweights." As Brielle skimmed the invitation, a knot formed in her stomach. This was the kind of opportunity artists dreamed of, national exposure, a chance to perform alongside music royalty. But the old fears still lingered. Was she ready for that level of scrutiny, that pressure? Her phone buzzed with a text from Silas. "Just checking in. How's the meeting going?" She smiled, typing back, "Good. Tell you about it later. Big opportunity just came up." His response was immediate. "Whatever it is, you've got this." 4 simple words, but they steadied her. This was what having a partner meant. Someone who believed in you even when your own faith wavered. "Tell Marlo I'd be honored," she told Marcus. "But I'll need to discuss the details. I have commitments to Tamika that I won't compromise on." Marcus nodded, understanding. Family first. "That's one of the things I respect most about you, Brielle. You've never lost sight of what matters." After finalizing the vinyl details, Brielle headed to a small cafe for lunch before her interview. As she waited for her order, she noticed a young woman at a nearby table watching her. Finally, the woman approached, clutching a notebook to her chest. "Excuse me, are you Brielle Joyner?" Brielle smiled, still not entirely used to being recognized. "Yes, I am. I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say thank you." The woman's eyes were earnest. "Your song, Mother's Hands, that helped me through my mom's cancer diagnosis. The way you sing about finding strength even in the hardest moments, it gave me hope when I needed it most." Emotion welled up in Brielle's throat. "How is your mom doing?" "She's in remission." The woman smiled through tears. "And she loves your music too. We listened to your album together during her treatments." "I'm so glad she's doing better," Brielle said sincerely. "And thank you for telling me. It means more than you know." After the woman left, Brielle sat quietly, absorbing what had just happened. Her music, born from her own pain and hope, was helping others through their darkest times. It was a responsibility, yes, but also a gift, one she never could have imagined when she was singing background at the Marlowe estate less than a year ago. Her phone interview with the music blog went smoothly, the journalist more interested in her songwriting process than gossip about her relationship with Silas. When the topic did eventually turn to their engagement, Brielle was ready. "Silas heard something in my voice that night that no one else had bothered to listen for," she explained. "Not just talent, but truth. And that's what connected us. A mutual recognition of the other person's truth." "There's been some criticism that your success is due to his influence," the journalist noted. "How do you respond to that?" Brielle took a deep breath. "Opportunity and talent are different things. Yes, Silas gave me an opportunity when others might not have, but the voice, the songs, the emotion people are connecting with, that's all mine. It's the result of everything I've lived through, everything I've fought for, especially for my sister." "And how is Tamika adjusting to all this change?" Brielle smiled at the thought of her sister. "She's thriving. She still keeps me grounded, though. Last week she told me my new song was okay, but needed more drums." After the interview, Brielle had one more stop before heading home. She drove to a small cemetery on the outskirts of the city, a bunch of sunflowers in the passenger seat beside her. At a simple headstone marked, "Eliza King, beloved daughter, friend and voice." Brielle laid the flowers and stood quietly for a moment. "I'm not here to replace you," she said softly to the air, "but I promise to take care of him, to help him remember how to listen with his heart, the way you taught him." It had been her idea to visit Eliza's grave, to acknowledge the woman who had been such an important part of Silas's life. He had offered to come with her, but Brielle had wanted to do this alone, a private moment of respect and gratitude. As she drove home, she felt a sense of peace. The past and present were no longer in conflict. They were simply different chapters of the same ongoing story. When she pulled into the driveway, Tamika came running out to meet her, waving a piece of paper excitedly. "I got accepted to the summer science program," she exclaimed, thrusting the letter at Brielle. "The one at NASA. They only take 20 kids from the whole country." Brielle hugged her sister tight, pride swelling in her chest. "That's amazing, baby girl. I knew you could do it." Silas appeared in the doorway, his face as proud as if Tamika were his own sister. In many ways, she had become family to him too these past months. "We're celebrating with ice cream before dinner," he announced. "Chef's orders." Later, after Tamika had gone to bed, exhausted from excitement, Brielle and Silas sat on the rooftop garden where he had first tried to propose. The night was warm, stars twinkling above the city lights. "I visited Eliza's grave today," she said quietly. Silas took her hand, his eyes soft with understanding. "Thank you for that. It means a lot." "I needed to do it. For all of us." She leaned against his shoulder. "Marlo Hayes invited me to perform at her retirement concert. It's going to be televised nationally." "Brielle, that's incredible." He turned to face her. "Are you going to do it?" "I think so. If we can work around Tamika's schedule." She looked up at him. "It's a little terrifying, to be honest." "The best things usually are." He stroked her cheek. "You know, when I first heard you sing at the Marlowe estate, I never imagined where it would lead. I just knew I couldn't let you walk away without at least trying to hear that voice again. And now you're stuck with it for good," she teased. "Luckiest man alive," he murmured, kissing her softly. As they sat together under the stars, Brielle thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a desperate gig in a borrowed dress to a chart-climbing album. From suspicion and wariness to trust and love. From surviving alone to building a future together. 3 weeks later, Brielle stood backstage at the Grand Ole Opry, where Marlo Hayes' retirement concert was being held. Her heart pounded as the stage manager signaled 5 minutes until her performance. Silas and Tamika had traveled with her to Nashville, staying close for moral support. Now they stood with her in the wings, Tamika practically vibrating with excitement at seeing so many famous musicians up close. "You look beautiful," Silas said, adjusting the simple gold necklace he had given her that morning, a small music note pendant set with a tiny diamond. "I'm so nervous," Brielle admitted. "What if I forget the words?" "You won't," he assured her. "But even if you did, your voice would carry you through. It always has." Tamika hugged her sister fiercely. "You're going to be the best one, Brie. Even better than that lady with the big hair who was on earlier." Brielle laughed, some of the tension easing. "That lady with the big hair has won 6 Grammy Awards, baby girl. So, you sing from your heart. That's what matters." Out of the mouths of babes, Brielle thought, not for the first time. The stage manager approached. "Ms. Joyner, you're up next. Ms. Hayes will introduce you herself." Brielle took a deep breath, squeezing Silas's hand one last time before walking to the edge of the stage. From here, she could see the packed auditorium, the television cameras, the industry VIPs in the front rows. For a moment, Panic threatened to overwhelm her. These people had heard the greatest voices in music. What made her think she belonged on this stage? Then Marlo Hayes was speaking, her voice warm with genuine admiration. Music, at its best, doesn't just entertain us. It moves us, connects us, reminds us what it means to be human. The artist I'm about to introduce understands that better than most. Her voice doesn't just hit the notes, it hits the heart. Please welcome in her national television debut, Brielle Joyner. The applause was polite but reserved as Brielle walked onto the stage. She knew most of the audience was probably wondering who she was, why she had been included in this prestigious lineup. The spotlight found her as she stepped up to the microphone. In the front row, she could see Catherine Wren sitting next to several Wren song executives, her expression expectant. A few rows back, Gloria from the cafe was dabbing at her eyes, already emotional before Brielle had sung a single note. "Thank you, Ms. Hayes, for that generous introduction," Brielle said into the microphone, her voice steadier than she felt. "And thank you all for being here tonight." She had chosen to perform "The Song You Stayed For," the piece she had written for Silas, the one that had closed her showcase at the Maple Leaf Bar. It felt right to share it now with this larger audience, this bigger stage. The piano intro began, and Brielle closed her eyes for just a moment, centering herself. When she opened them again, she looked to the wings where Silas and Tamika stood watching, their faces filled with love and pride. And then she began to sing. The first verse was quiet, intimate, drawing the audience in with its story of unexpected connection, of being truly heard for the first time. By the chorus, Brielle's voice had grown stronger, filling the legendary hall with its rich, emotional tones. She sang of walls coming down, of trust built note by note, of the courage it takes to believe in second chances. And as the final verse approached, the one about finding home in another person's understanding, she felt, rather than saw the audience leaning forward, completely captivated. The last note hung in the air, pure and true, before fading into silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved or made a sound. Then, as if a dam had broken, applause erupted. Not the polite acknowledgement of before, but a standing ovation that seemed to shake the very walls of the Opry. Brielle stood in the spotlight, tears streaming down her face as the ovation continued. Marlo Hayes returned to the stage, embracing her warmly before saying into the microphone, "That, ladies and gentlemen, is what music is supposed to do to us." Thank you, Brielle Joyner, for reminding us. As Brielle left the stage to thunderous applause, Silas enfolded her in his arms, his own eyes wet with tears. "I am so proud of you," he whispered against her hair, "so incredibly proud." Tamika hugged her next, jumping up and down with excitement. "You made people cry, Brie, even that grumpy-looking man in the fancy suit." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and introductions. Industry veterans who had barely acknowledged her existence before now pressed business cards into her hand, offering collaboration opportunities, tour invitations, producer services. Through it all, Brielle stayed grounded, graciously accepting their praise but making no promises. Every decision would be made thoughtfully, with Tamika's needs and her own creative integrity in mind. When they finally returned to their hotel suite, exhausted but exhilarated, Silas opened a bottle of champagne while Tamika changed into her pajamas. "To the voice that stopped the world tonight," he toasted, handing Brielle a glass. "To the man who stayed to listen," she countered, clinking her glass against his. After Tamika had fallen asleep in the adjoining room, Brielle and Silas stood at the window, looking out at the Nashville skyline. "Everything's going to change after tonight," she said softly. "There were recording executives from every major label there." "Some things will change," Silas agreed, "but not what matters most." He turned her to face him. "Not us. Not your relationship with Tamika, not your voice and what it stands for." "Promise?" she asked, suddenly needing his reassurance. "Promise." He kissed her gently. "Remember what you sang tonight, about finding home in another person's understanding? That's what we've built, Brielle. A home. Whatever comes next, we face it together." She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I never thought I could have this. Music, love, security, all of it. You deserve all of it and more," Silas said, his voice fierce with conviction. "You always did. I'm just grateful I was there to hear you that night." "The night you stayed," she murmured. "The night that changed everything," he agreed. 3 months later, on a perfect spring day, Brielle stood in the garden behind their home, wearing a simple white dress, wildflowers in her hair. Tamika, in a pale blue dress that matched her eyes, stood beside her, practically glowing with happiness. A string quartet played softly as guests found their seats, a small gathering of close friends and family. Gloria from the cafe sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes already. Mrs. Wilson was there too, beaming with pride. Even Catherine Wren looked genuinely happy, seated beside Marcus and the other Wren Song staff, who had become like family. When the music changed, Brielle took a deep breath and began to walk down the flower-lined path. At the end stood Silas, his eyes never leaving hers as she approached. Beside him was a small table holding a vinyl record, the first pressing of Brielle Joyner Unfiltered, with her profile on the cover, half in shadow, half in light. It had been Silas's suggestion to include it in the ceremony, a symbol of the music that had brought them together. As Brielle reached him, taking his outstretched hands, she thought about the journey that had led them here. From that night at the Marlowe estate, when she had sung in a borrowed dress, desperate for a few $100s, to this moment of perfect joy. The officiant smiled at them both before addressing the gathered guests. We are here today to celebrate not just the union of Brielle and Silas, but the remarkable journey that brought them together, a journey of music and hope, of second chances and new beginnings. Brielle and Silas had written their own vows, simple and heartfelt. When it was her turn to speak, Brielle looked into his eyes and felt all nervousness fall away. Silas, before I met you, I was surviving, not living, singing to pay bills, not because it brought me joy. Her voice was steady, clear. You heard something in me that night that I had almost forgotten was there. You didn't just hear my voice, you heard me, my struggles, my dreams, my truth. She squeezed his hands, aware of Tamika watching proudly from beside her. I promise to remember that listening is as important as being heard, to build our life on truth and trust, even when it's difficult, to help you hear the music in everyday moments, the way you helped me find my voice again. Silas's eyes shone with emotion as he began his own vows. Brielle, for years after I lost Eliza, I stopped really listening. Music became business, relationships became transactions. I was existing, not living. He took a shaky breath. Then you stepped up to that microphone, and I heard something I thought was gone forever. Honesty, raw, beautiful truth. He glanced at Tamika, including her in his words. I promise to always listen with my heart, not just my ears, to support your dreams without trying to shape them, to give you roots and wings, both of you, and to stay through whatever comes, because the song we're creating together is the most beautiful one I've ever heard. As they exchanged rings, a soft breeze stirred the garden, carrying the scent of jasmine and the distant sounds of New Orleans. It seemed to Brielle that in that moment, everything had come full circle, the struggles and doubts transformed into something precious and lasting. By the power vested in me, the officiant said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Their kiss was gentle but full of promise, sealing the vows they had just made. As they turned to face their friends and family, now standing and applauding, Brielle felt a completeness she had never known before. The reception was joyful and relaxed, with good food, better music, and genuine laughter. As the evening progressed, Silas took Brielle's hand and led her to a quiet corner of the garden. I have something for you, he said, producing a small package wrapped in silver paper. Inside was a vinyl record, not her album, but something else. The cover showed a simple title, The Song I Stayed For, Silas Wren. You recorded it? She asked, touched beyond words. Just one copy, just for you. He looked suddenly shy. I'll never be the singer you are, but I wanted you to have this. Something that's just ours, not for the world to hear. Tears filled Brielle's eyes as she hugged him tight. It's perfect. Thank you. As they rejoined the party, Tamika ran up to them, her face alight with excitement. Brie, they want you to sing. Everyone's asking. Brielle looked at Silas, who nodded encouragingly. Go on. Your audience awaits. The guests gathered around as Brielle took her place beside the quartet. Without any accompaniment, she began to sing, not one of her recorded songs, but an old spiritual her mother had taught her, a song about faith and perseverance, about finding light in the darkness. Her voice rose clear and strong in the evening air, carrying across the garden and beyond, into the heart of the city that had shaped her. As the final notes faded, she found Silas's eyes in the crowd, saw the love and pride shining there, and knew with absolute certainty that this moment, this life, this love, was what she had been singing for all along, not just to survive, but to truly live. The night continued with dancing and celebration, but for Brielle the most perfect moment came much later, After the guests had departed, she, Silas, and Tamika sat on the rooftop garden, still in their wedding clothes, looking up at the stars over New Orleans. "Are we a real family now?" Tamika asked, her head resting on Brielle's shoulder. "We always were," Brielle answered, reaching for Silas's hand. "But yes, officially now." "Good," Tamika yawned, "because I already told everyone at school that Silas is my brother-in-law." Silas laughed, pulling them both closer. "And I told everyone at work that I have the two most brilliant women in New Orleans as my family." As Tamika dozed off, Brielle and Silas remained, watching the stars and holding each other close. "Happy?" he asked softly. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied. In the distance, the sounds of the city created their own kind of music, jazz from the French Quarter, boat horns from the Mississippi, the rhythm of life continuing its eternal dance. But here, in this moment, there was a different song playing, one of family and hope, of dreams realized and promises kept, the song he had stayed for, the song they would sing together, day by day, note by note, for all the years to come. The end.